Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. 1957 was a pretty neat year. Dwight Eisenhower was president, and one of the most iconic cars, the 57 Chevy, was still rolling off assembly lines. The Brooklyn Dodgers played their last game at Ebbets Field, eventually moving to Los Angeles, and that same year, the Soviet Union launched the first space satellite, Sputnik 1. For just a little bit of perspective, I thought I'd share with you the average cost for a house was $12,220, and a gallon of gas cost 24 cents. I wish it was 1957. Yes, 1957 was a remarkable special year that included the Howard College Division of Pharmacy moving from the Eastlake campus to Homewood, settling into one of the first buildings on campus just to the east of Sherman Circle and beginning classes. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say thank you to each of you for being here to celebrate Ingalls Hall. I've looked forward to this day and the opportunity to meet more alumni, hear great stories, and talk about all the remarkable things that have happened that have led up to this day. What would this place be if it wasn't for you? Each person here has contributed in some small way to the fabric of this great school. And I'd like to take just a moment to see who's who. So, if you're an alumnus of the school, could you please stand? Wow. Thank you very much. Welcome home. Please have a seat. How about previous faculty members and staff? Would you please stand? These guys are going to be standing a little bit here. Excellent. Thank you for being here. Who's here that's a current student, faculty member, or staff member? Please stand. We kind of look like we work at Best Buy, don't we? Thank you very much. Have a seat. And is there anyone here this afternoon on the school advisory board? Please stand. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair, for being here. I would like to announce that yesterday, the school advisory board committed to a $25,000 scholarship fund for incoming students. And there's an anonymous matching gift up to $25,000. So thank you, Advisory Board. As I look across the crowd, there are decades that could separate us, yet we all have the same tie that binds. This pharmacy school, this university, connects us like no other place. But it's not the front gates, the Georgian architecture, or Mr. Beeson's statue that makes this place special. It's our shared memories and experiences, and because it is, as it should be, for God, for learning forever. So as we begin to celebrate our storied 90 years, 59 of which have been in Ingalls Hall, it seems to me we have 3 chapters that have been written so far. The first one would be Howard College, Samford years, and then putting things together, the McWhorter years. And I want to take a moment to review the history, set the stage for these gentlemen to give you perspective on what's happened during these times. The Howard years started in 1927. We were founded as a department of pharmacy. It was a 3-year pharmacy graduate degree, with the director being Dr. Brakefield. It lasted only 2 years, predominantly because of the economic times, but also because of forthcoming accreditation issues. In 1932, under Dr. Bliss, who would be the first dean, it reopened as a 4-year Bachelor of Science degree. And a lot of things happened under Dr. Bliss, but probably the best would be, we could say we were the largest pharmacy school in the South. During that time, we also upgraded to a division of pharmacy in 1938. And when accreditation was available, we became an accredited school of pharmacy in 1941, and we're proud to say we've maintained it since that time. Upon the death of Dr. Bliss, Dr. Richards took over. It was a difficult time during World War II, obviously from a recruitment standpoint, to keep the school going. We only had 20 students. per year. But after the war was over, we could see that Dr. Hike increased the program. We got larger, not only in terms of number of students, but also in terms of the footprint of the building and the facilities that we used. This is what we looked like when we moved to Homewood. This was 1957. Neat old campus, building. But if you take a look and keep your eye on the picture, you'll see how we have transitioned over the years. It's a beautiful campus. And as Dr. Westmoreland says, we enjoy the shade of trees we didn't plant. And for 59 years, we've been in this beautiful old building. This building that has grown and adapted and built one of the best private schools of pharmacies in the country. So we moved to Homewood in 1957, and that was under Dr. Byram's time. Dr. Byram was the dean for almost 20 years. A lot happened during that time period. We upgraded to a BS in pharmacy that was a 5-year program, and that was a requirement from an accreditation standpoint. And we also, in 1965, when the school or university became Samford University, we became the Samford School of Pharmacy. The next dean was Dr. Winter. The school grew quite a bit during this time. The clinical footprint of pharmacy really expanded during this time, and also we expanded where we grew into the entire space of Ingalls Hall. And the Drug Information Center was founded in 1981. Dr. Burrell started as dean in 1985, and the continued growth certainly happened during this time. We started the post-grad PharmD. It was an optional PharmD that you could get after your bachelor's degree. And also during this time, we had our first dual degree, a pharmacy degree, in combination with a Master's of Business Administration. So the Samford years started here. They grew into the McWhorter years. The McWhorter years started in 1995, 1996, under the leadership of Joe Dean. This is when we really established our international footprint, and it's also when we expanded our clinical activities at UAB. Dr. Bryant and Dr. Sands followed in the footsteps of the deans that preceded them, continued growth. One of the big things that happened during this time period was the establishment of the Pharmaceutical Sciences Research Institute, a phenomenal expansion of research opportunities, and they've done a fantastic job. Also in 2013, we had the College of Health Sciences established. The college is an umbrella organization under which the autonomous units of a School of Pharmacy, Nursing, Public Health, and Health Professions work collaboratively and together to educate students in a unique way. I've had the privilege to be dean since 2014, and it is certainly a privilege to serve this grand school and grand university. Working with a faculty that I would put against any other faculty in the country, we've started another dual degree of PharmD MPH, and we also saw a re-envisioning of the Drug Information Center as the Center for Healthcare Innovation and Patient Outcomes Research, or CHIPR. What we had happen under Dr. Dean's leadership that has continued to this point was because of the great gift and generosity of Clayton McWhorter. It was a transformational gift that changed who we are as a school of pharmacy and the imprint of how we serve the patients that we do. Clayton passed away, if you haven't heard, in January of this year. For just a moment, I would like to have a moment of silence in honor of Clayton. So if you could please bow your head with me. Dear Heavenly Father, as we gather here this afternoon, we thank you for this day and the opportunity for fellowship with friends and family. We thank you, Lord, for Clayton McWhorter and the impact that he had on this school and university. Father, we ask that you strengthen us and fill us with your peace as we take the next steps in our journey as a school of pharmacy. May we always keep you as the focus of all of our endeavors. We pray for all these things. In Christ's name, amen. So, Clayton was scheduled to be our commencement speaker on May 6th. And I am pleased to say that Stuart, his son, will be providing that address. And in honor and in memoriam of Clayton, we've developed a video that I wanted to preview today. And if you're not able to come to commencement, this will be your opportunity to see it.
When I think about my early beginnings, and with the encouragement of Tom Courts and Joe Dean, we did give back to the school that provided me the educational opportunity. And as a result, I continue to be blessed to know that we were able to make a difference in taking the pharmacy school to another level.
Clayton McWhorter has had an impact on many people and places throughout his career. The fruits of his legacy to this institution are represented by current and future graduates. Thomas E. Courts, President, Samford University.
Almighty God, we thank you for Clayton McWhorter and the legacy he provides this university by his sharing of your blessings to him. Dr. Joseph O. Dean, Dean, Samford University School of Pharmacy.
The name McWhorter and healthcare go hand in hand. Born September the 27th, 1933, Clayton McWhorter came to Samford University, graduating with the class of 1955 with a degree in pharmacy. After practicing briefly, he began a transition into hospital management. A stop with Hospital Corporation of America saw him work up the ranks to become its executive vice president, president, and eventual chief operating officer in 1985. McWhorter took part in the formation of Health Trust Incorporated in 1987, serving as chairman, president, and chief executive officer until Health Trust merged with Columbia HCA Healthcare Corporation, where he became chairman of the board, a post he held till 1996. R. Clayton McWhorter was a true healthcare pioneer.
The school has created a tradition that we can all be proud of. And certainly, the McWhorter family is honored that this great school of pharmacy and the Samford Board of Trustees allowed the school to accept our family name. I encourage our alumni and supporters to continue to support our school. And remember, what you give back, you never lose.
Thank you, Michael. It is so good to be back on the Samford campus and to see so many old friends and former colleagues that I worked with here at Samford. Having spent 20 years of my life on this campus as a student and as a former faculty member and administrator, I follow with great interest what happens at this School of Pharmacy and this university. I'm very pleased to see that our school continues to be recognized as one of the best schools of pharmacy in the country, and that this university continues to be recognized as not only the best private university in Alabama, but also one of the best universities in the country. I know this because my daughter is entering Samford this fall, and we did a lot of research on universities when we were looking at that. No doubt these recognitions are the result of both the competence and dedication of current and former faculty and administrators and staff, but also the great track record of many of its graduates, such as Clayton McWhorter. I must admit that this occasion we celebrate today is a bittersweet moment for me. I essentially grew up as a pharmacist, faculty member, and administrator in Ingalls Hall. I love the place and hate to see it abandoned. But I will freely admit that as I have gotten older, I have found that I am less comfortable with change. Probably the best evidence of that is I just bought my first smartphone with great encouragement from my children. As one of the oldest living faculty members and members of the administration, I see my assignment here today is essentially to take you on a trip down memory lane, sharing with you how things were when I first encountered Ingalls Hall and the Samford University School of Pharmacy, as it was known then, and what happened to both entities during my time here. I am glad to do so, but with the proviso that my recollection is likely influenced by a bit of senility and a lot of ego. But let us start. I arrived at Samford University in the fall of 1967, approximately 10 years after the Howard College, as Samford was known then, had moved from its old campus on the east side of Birmingham to its present location. Ingalls Hall was one of the first buildings built on campus. The building was indeed beautiful, and because there were so few buildings yet built, Ingalls was shared by many departments on the campus, including the Division of Pharmacy. But the money donated to build Ingalls Hall was insufficient to furnish it. So the building had recycled furniture, laboratory facilities, and equipment from the old Howard College campus. Interestingly, there was a licensed pharmacy in the building, although as a student I cannot remember ever spending any time in it. Programmatically, the school was well known then as a good place to learn how to practice retail pharmacy. Compared to today, there were very few pharmacy faculty and staff. Where's Tony McBride? Maybe 6 or so. And there was a dean who was physically ill while I was there and who I rarely saw as a student. And there was one secretary for the entire school. The recently mandated 5-year curriculum was still primarily basic sciences oriented. The real strength of the program then, in my view, and a great advantage the school had over competing schools such as Auburn University and Ole Miss, was that it was located in a large metropolitan area where virtually all students worked part-time, learning from practitioners how to practice pharmacy while learning the science of pharmacy at school. Another advantage for students who came to Samford was that you could go year-round and finish the 3-year professional program in 2 years, which I did. During my senior year in the School of Pharmacy, 2 things happened which opened my eyes to an evolving new world in pharmacy. First, I enrolled in 2 new elective courses that were being offered by the school. Hospital Pharmacy, taught by Charles M. King, the Director of Pharmacy at UAB, and Clinical Pharmacy, taught by pharmacy faculty member Dr. Stanley Cecina. These 2 courses introduced me to what a select group of pharmacists with PharmD degrees were doing in other areas of the country, working directly with physicians in the clinical setting to improve drug therapy. The Clinical Pharmacy course had a weekly lab at UAB, which paired pharmacy students with physicians in the clinical setting. The second thing that happened is that I started working at Children's Hospital part-time while going to school, where I had the joy of working for a pharmacist by the name of Charles Bruce, the Director of Pharmacy, who was a great mentor and a model for how to work with physicians to improve drug therapy in pediatric patients. Many of you probably know Charles Bruce. Those two experiences caused me to embark on a whole new career direction in pharmacy. After completing 2 years of service in the United States Public Health Service, I went back to school and earned the PharmD degree at the University of Tennessee and completed a residency. To my great surprise, I received a phone call toward the end of that training from the new dean of the Samford School of Pharmacy, Dr. John Winter, a call that would have a tremendous impact on my life. During that call and a later interview, Dr. Winter explained to me that pharmacy accreditation standards were changing and that he needed someone to come and help him and the faculty figure out how to implement this new clinical pharmacy stuff that had to be put into the curriculum. So I came back to Samford in the summer of 1973 as the first and only PharmD in Alabama, as far as I know, to begin working on that assignment. Not much had changed in the 4 years since I had left. We still had about the same number of faculty, except that the school now had a full-time person teaching pharmacology instead of a part-time physician. Anybody remember his name? Harry Shirkey, yes. And a brand new faculty member had been hired, Dr. Tony McBride, who had taken Dr. Winter's former position teaching medicinal chemistry. I'm told that Tony McBride has told others I was the first PharmD he had ever seen. The school had also taken over more of the building, but the furnishings were still very old and in serious need of replacement. Over the course of the next 10 years or so, I had the privilege of working with Dean Winter and the faculty to build what I truly believe was one of the best undergraduate clinical pharmacy education programs in the country. We dramatically changed the curriculum, hired lots of excellent faculty from some of the best PharmD programs in the country, introduced clinical pharmacy practice into many hospital, nursing home, and ambulatory care settings, and formed a drug information center that supported the drug information needs of hospitals throughout the state. We had such a strong undergraduate clinical pharmacy program that I was able to convince Dean Winter and the faculty to propose to the university administration in about 1982 that we implement an optional doctor of pharmacy program. Sadly, that proposal was turned down. 2 years later, in 1984, John Winter decided to step down as dean and return to his teaching position. The search committee asked me to apply for the job, and I did. In 1985, President Tom Courts offered me the position. It was the beginning of an exciting time for me personally, and I believe for the school. Over the course of the next 5 years, we successfully completed the first capital campaign the school had ever conducted, raising $1 million. Interestingly, it was during this campaign that I first encountered Clayton McWhorter, who said at the time he intended to make a substantial contribution to the School of Pharmacy and University in the future, a promise which Joe Dean was able to capitalize later on during his time as dean. But with the $1 million we raised, we renovated the building to accommodate all the new faculty we'd hired. We improved administrative offices, classrooms, laboratories, and other teaching facilities. We hired even more top-notch basic science and clinical faculty. We expanded clinical pharmacy practice models into additional settings. We created the Pharmacokinetics Center, and we made the decision to recommend to the university administration that we replace the BS in Pharmacy program with the Doctor of Pharmacy program, which again Joe Dean and the faculty implemented over the next several years. Parenthetically, to provide some context, I'd like to add that there were several individuals who graduated from the University of Tennessee PharmD program about the time that I did, who went on to lead clinical pharmacy education programs in other schools of pharmacy, and who eventually became deans, such as Dick Gorley, who became the first PharmD dean in the country at Mercer in Georgia, myself at Samford, who was the second, and Ron Maddox at Campbell University, who was the third. Together with John Gans at the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, you may recognize that name because he's he's recently retired, Executive Vice President of the American Pharmaceutical Association. We felt like, I think, as a group of people leading a revolution in pharmacy, much like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, except in the pharmacy world. In the summer of 1990, after being on the faculty for 17 years, I was offered the opportunity to become a senior vice president of a retail pharmacy chain whose board of directors and CEO indicated to me they wanted to use clinical pharmacy, patient-oriented services as an advantage in the marketplace. They invited me to lead an effort to better train their pharmacists to provide patient-oriented services, to upgrade their pharmacy facilities and operations so that their pharmacists could do that, and figure out how to get cash customers and third-party payers to pay for those services. I decided to take that opportunity and to go over to the dark side of business, as my colleagues said at the time. This too is an exciting time for me, and we did make progress in all those areas, but unfortunately that effort was cut short as the company was acquired by a large pharmacy chain, which 6 months later, that was Revco, which 6 months later was acquired by Eckerd's, which 6 months later was acquired by CVS. They didn't even get the signs on the stores changed before they had to. After that experience, I was invited to become vice president of one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, Wyeth. This too was an exciting time for me. Initially, I was responsible for the company's drug information and professional affairs services, but later was given responsibility for strategic planning, organizational performance management, and project management of clinical trials in both R&D and medical affairs worldwide. Much of what I've said about myself today, and especially the comments about what I have been doing since I left Samford, I share for the sake of the students and recent graduates in this audience. When I was in pharmacy school, I never thought I would have the opportunities I've had in my career. Opportunities enabled by a degree from this School of Pharmacy. My point is that pharmacy is a great career choice. And those of you who have chosen to get your degree at this school have chosen to start your career at one of the best schools of pharmacy in the country. Now to close. As far as moving the School of Pharmacy out of Ingalls Hall, I must say, as I said earlier, it makes me sad. I don't like it. As I get older, change becomes harder. But just as things had to change while I was here at the School of Pharmacy, and those changes I believe did improve the school, I am sure that the McWhorter School of Pharmacy will become even better in its new home, integrated with all the other health-related programs here at Samford. I wish the faculty, administration, and student body well as you make this transition. And who knows, I might even check in on the school from time to time on my fancy new smartphone. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dean Crouch. I am pleased to be here with all of these old friends and colleagues to share some memories of Ingalls Hall with a newer generation of MSOP graduates and alumni and friends. Like Tim, my history goes back a long ways with this building. I began in Ingalls Hall in the summer of 1958. I graduated from high school on Friday night and began pharmacy school on Monday morning. And I was working as a student assistant for Dean Woodrow Byram. My responsibility was an interesting one because, as Tim mentioned, we had a retail drugstore on the main floor of Ingalls Hall. And my job, along with Dr. Lewis Letson, I'm MD now, we stocked the drugstore. And where Michael Kendrock's office was then a stock room. And if you'll notice outside that building, there is a loading dock. That was where deliveries were received. So I go back a bit of time with this. My years started early. I completed my graduation requirements in January of '62. Actually, my pharmacy license are dated before my formal diploma. because I took the board in March of that year. Another little aside, during that period of time, the Alabama State Board of Pharmacy did their examinations for graduates for licensure, alternating between Auburn and Samford, or Howard it was then. And we had wet lab in what many of you will remember as the old pharmaceutics lab. So, a lot of history, a lot of memories. In '58, Samford had about 2,000 students. It was just completing its move here to this campus. And by the fall of '57, all the programs were relocated here, and pharmacy began with all of its students here in this building in '57. The departments of pharmacy, complete with the retail drugstore, some sections of business, home economics, actually took typing in what is now the Dunlap Family Student Commons. Didn't do very well in that. I still type with 2 fingers. So for context, let's get another picture of this 10 years before Tim's time. There were 5 faculty members then. 5 faculty members. We admitted a total of 135 students a year, split between classes that started in the fall, spring, and summer. Some of you that are in this room, I would imagine, entered in the spring or the summer. One of the great changes that Tim made was getting us on a calendar year admission cycle. I see Tony's back there. He agrees with that. Matter of fact, Tony's the one that said to me one day, Tim Burrell was the first PharmD I ever met. So 95% of our students were men back then. Wow, isn't that nice? And the Accrediting Council had agreed that we would move to the 5-year degree program. We moved that. It prompted the addition of the clinical faculty, development of practice relationships in the community and institutional environments. In the 70s, a nationwide shortage of pharmacists resulted in public health issues that were resolved by the government, starting a capitation program. They gave colleges of pharmacy in the country dollars per student to increase enrollments. Is that a little different than it is today? Yes, it is. What we found then was that money helped the school facilities and faculty grow to keep pace with what was changed that was going on in healthcare. Well, now I'm back in 1975 as an instructor and director of professional affairs and admissions in the School of Pharmacy. I look out there and a lot of you have been in my office to begin pharmacy school. Some of you for other reasons, but most of them to get. Today is our celebration of Ingalls Hall. So after 7+ decades with a relationship with Howard and Samford, I have an insider's perspective. But since our focus is on Ingalls Hall today, let me give you a few things to think about. Now I can discuss these long with you after the program is over, but on the ground floor of Ingalls Hall, there was a live animals room with cages and the pharmacology and physiology lab where the large classroom is on the ground floor. Across from that room were fraternity and sorority rooms for Kappa Psi, Phi Delta Chi, and Lambda Kappa Sigma. The rest of that hallway on that side were storage rooms for glassware, chemicals, and instruments. Most of you don't realize, but just past the foyer on the downstairs level was a photographic dark room. Some of you will also remember Dr. Dunbar's manufacturing pharmacy lab. You know that strange room that's off of the back of the Dunlap Family Student Commons that has the floor and drains and all that? That was an early sterile products room. The main entrance to our school was dark paneled, very stark. It had display cases on each side of it that had unchangeable displays of Kappa Psi and Phi Delta Chi. Now we move up to the second floor. Gosh, what did we see there? A fully functioning retail drugstore. Everything from cosmetics to cards and prescriptions. A licensed place. Interestingly, my desk during my years as a dean sat in what was the prescription department of that drugstore. We had dispensing and pharmaceutics labs on that floor, faculty offices, the dean's office suite, which is now where Renee DeHart's offices are, ward auditorium. It does have a real name. We called it the Pit. Most of you still call it the Pit. And the Walgreens seminar room was the smoke room. The third floor consisted at opposite ends organic chemistry and medicinal chemistry labs with a quantitative chemistry lab in between, weight rooms and such there, along with some faculty offices, a couple of research labs. Dr. Winter had his lab there. The connecting hallway now to the expansion into Russell Hall, where the practice chairs suite was where home economics was located. I've had sewing projects done there. Think split your pants before a meeting. They actually put me in a closet. I passed them out, they sewed them up and gave them back. Yeah. If I'd not gotten them back, I don't know what would have happened. The fourth floor has been referred to as the attic, and it was truly an attic. As Tim said, it was full of whatever was left over from the move from the East Lake campus. And we were talking earlier, there were some scary things found up there. So, much of Ingalls Hall and the forensic program has changed over the years. The number and diversity of students and faculty, each of you have a personal perspective on that. Several renovations and expansions of the facility have occurred. The physical facility was essentially unchanged during the 60s and 70s. Physical changes prompted by the relocation of some of the other academic programs around campus occurred beginning in the mid-70s and 80s under Dean Winter and Dean Burrell. Notably, the drugstore space was redesigned into spaces to accommodate the newly formed clinical practice department. Dean Burrell has spoken authoritatively about the program and the facilities during his tenure as a student, faculty, and dean during the late 60s, 70s, and 80s. Well, after earning graduate degrees, I spent the decade of the 80s in university administration as a vice president for university relations here and as vice president for development at Charleston Southern University in South Carolina. I returned to Samford as president and CEO of the Samford University Foundation in 1989. In April 91, I was named the 8th dean of the School of Pharmacy at Samford. I was very fortunate to follow Tim as dean. He left a new program with a modern organizational structure and expanded faculty populated with fresh faces. Actually, still among us are Lander, Sims, Henderson, Sands. Any of those names ring a bell? That came in under Tim's period of time. He also helped us to grow respect within the profession for a new and progressive curriculum and the first steps toward the All PharmD program, and an advisory board of pharmacy leaders. Thank you, Tim. You left it in very good shape. On my watch, it was simply a normal progression to make the transition to the all PharmD. The faculty had agreed to make the move when we had the resources and the faculty in place that would enable us to do that. Samford University Administrative was supportive, agreed that that was time, and we moved ahead with it. A new curriculum was required. During 92-93, the pharmacy faculty, serving as a committee of the whole and led by Dr. Pamela Sims, embarked on a total quality management process to design the new curriculum. This became known as the Samford Plan. It was presented and published and shared with folks all over the country and internationally as a model for developing an intentional curriculum. It added to our reputation as well. The first all PharmD class entered in 1994, and the new curriculum unfolded, laying track in front of the train. Based on our positive experiences with the Samford Plan, we were also on the forefront of academic pharmacy in developing student-centered learning approaches, team-based, problem-based, and integrated learning. The PBL movement at Samford was largely supported by a Pew Foundation Charitable Trust grant. Again, our faculty became identified as resources to other programs. Samford faculty had launched numerous experiential site relationships in Birmingham and beyond at the launch of the Enhanced Clinical Program and Track in PharmD. Our relationship with University Hospital and clinics was bolstered by them providing us office space on the medical center campus for our clinical faculty. In fact, after we had begun and had experience with the all PharmD, we designed and implemented a non-traditional PharmD track for licensed pharmacists desiring the PharmD degree. It operated until that demand had been met. As we know, Samford embraces a global initiative, and under Dr. Burrell's leadership, pharmacy began developing relationships in Great Britain using Daniel House, Samford Study Center in London, as a base. The tradition of pharmacy faculty student excursions to Great Britain to study pharmacy and healthcare in Great Britain is long-standing. A few of you, how many of you in this room have had that experience? I see hands, I see hands. I remember faces, I remember fun. I won't tell any stories. In 1991, Dr. T. Sam Rowe, a professor of pharmacy, known and beloved by all of us, introduced us to Dr. Mikio Nishida, a professor of clinical pharmacy at an emergency clinical program at Meijō University in Nagoya, Japan. This led to a 20-plus year relationship between our institutions for faculty and student exchanges. The university authorized a translation into Japanese of a monograph on problem-based learning that was edited by Dr. Mary Monk Tudor and written by Samford faculty. This was used as a foundation for the Association of Japanese Pharmacy Schools to develop their clinical curricula, assisted by our visiting faculty from Samford. A number of you have been there for that purpose. Dean Sands, as a faculty member, introduced us to Korea when he was on home furlough from his post as Director of Pharmacy and Research at Wallace Memorial Baptist Hospital in Busan, Korea. He also facilitated our involvement with Sumyoung Women's University in Seoul and later in China. Our faculty took leadership roles on the steering committee of the organization now established as the East Asia Conference on Clinical Pharmacy. It was birthed at Samford with its initial concept and developed during the first international meeting held on our campus. The McWhorter School of Pharmacy came into being in 95-96. A bit more on that later. From the mid-90s forward, MSOP faculty grew in influence in the profession and in academic pharmacy. Many held elective offices in state and national organizations and were regularly represented on programs as presenters and moderators. MSOP student organizations thrived and led to awards and national recognition for their involvement in community-based service projects. Some of you may remember our own Santa, an Easter Bunny, a certain wet t-shirt contest, or a womanless fashion show visited by Tiger. I see the smiles of those people who know that. Annual school-wide picnics at Oak Mountain Park were a blast. As forever, students are a prime asset for our school. We thank you, and may that tradition continue. We were the talk of the academic pharmacy community when we launched our technology initiative involving providing students, faculty, and staff each with a personal digital assistant, a PDA. That's the forerunner of the smartphone, Tim. This was underwritten by Mr. Bill Probst, a 61 graduate. The peripheral brain, as Tony McBride named it, gave our students and faculty a practice advantage which was noteworthy. Our technology was a rich facility in Ingalls Hall, set the standard for classroom technology at Samford. So much to say, so little time. Global Drug Information Center, Managed Care Institute, Healthcare Ethics and Law Institute, but I promised some reflections on Clayton. Both Clayton, a graduate in 1955, and his brother Fred, a 1951 graduate, along with his niece, who's with us today, Teresa Beasley Collison. My first person-to-person contact with Clayton was in 1979 when he brought Teresa to my office. At that time, I was the director of professional affairs and pharmacy admissions. It was then that I became aware, as he often reminded me, that he was a VP at HCA. He said I'd stayed under the radar so far. Then later in 83-84, when Tom Courts was beginning his tenure as president, and I eventually was his vice president for university relations, Tom was casting about for an alum who was capable of a challenge gift to encourage alumni giving. He wanted to stimulate the annual fund and increase the number of alumni donors. I suggested Clayton as a potential donor with the capacity for such a gift and organized a visit to Nashville for Tom and myself to meet with Clayton, who was then an executive VP at HCA. Long story short, he made a commitment to that, and when asked, he said, I do think that the HCA Foundation will match my gift. Tom and Clayton became close friends. He was asked to be the alumni representative in Tom's inauguration activities, later named Alumnus of the Year, chaired the annual fund. Tom was courted for a large gift to pharmacy from early on, as Tim mentioned. He knew that we wanted him to help us. He was the initial chair of the Samford University Board of Overseers and was awarded an honorary doctorate. Their friendship continued. Clayton became a major donor. He established an endowment fund that was named for his brother, the Fred McWhorter Chair. Actually, on this stage, when we had that dedication ceremony for the official part of the naming of the building, Fred was not able to be here. We had to borrow a chair. We had it sitting on the stage with us. Later, when that chair came in, I had the opportunity to deliver it to him at his community pharmacy in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and say, now you have your own chair for real. Little memories like that are great memories to reflect upon. We traveled around the country, Tom, Clayton, and I, visiting alumni and friends all over the country. It was a great time to do that. When I returned to Samford in December '89 to establish the foundation, I resumed an active role with Clayton and was able to, when I was named Dean of Pharmacy, to help continue his commitment and support of the school. In 1993-95, he was merging Health Trust into Columbia HCA, which created a great opportunity for him to do things that he had dreamed of doing. At a meeting in the President's Dining Room in 1994, attended by Clayton, Tom Courts, and myself, Tom asked Clayton to consider a transforming gift. It was agreed that the pharmacy school would be named the McWhorter School of Pharmacy in honor of his family at his request. He proceeded with structuring the gift, and it resulted in what we've all benefited from. A major renovation ensued, dedication and naming of the school took place. It was the jump start that we needed so desperately. He continued his support of Samford in pharmacy. For example, he provided the seed funds to establish the Healthcare Ethics and Law Institute. So, other donors and friends, alumni have made an enormous impact on our school. As we leave Ingalls Hall, the names of people and companies whose generosity has benefited our school and our students will live on in new spaces and by the scholarship funds they established. For them and you who are among us, we are eternally grateful.
It's a great privilege for me to be part of this grand meeting today, this grand event celebrating Ingalls Hall. Now, I don't have the long history with Ingalls Hall that our two previous speakers have. I don't go back that far, no. Actually, I first came to and saw the beautiful, majestic Ingalls Hall in 1984. And at that time, Tim Burrell was the chair of Pharmacy Practice Department. And Tim, I think on a whim, he couldn't find anybody else, he hired me as a clinical instructor in the Department of Pharmacy Practice, which was a wonderful year for me. I was actually only here 1 year, as I then returned after 1 year of teaching to the Wallace Memorial Baptist Hospital in Busan, Korea, where I had and my wife had been medical missionaries with the Southern Baptist Medical Mission Group there. So this was my just 1 year teaching at Samford at that time. Went back to Busan, Korea, was there for 4 years, and then in 4 years returned to Samford University again and taught again for 1 year, and then returned back to Busan for 4 years, and then returned again to Samford. So that, it went on like that for many years. And then in in 2002, I was back on furlough, and Joe Dean grabbed me and said, we need some help here. Would you consider putting your name in the hat for becoming the chair of pharmacy practice? And so I agreed to do that and became the chair of pharmacy practice for several years. Then I was the dean from 2008 until 2013. And during that time, there were many changes in Ingalls Hall, and I'd like to share with you some of those. Some of those changes were greatly affected by the, as you recall, the great recession that began in 2008. So the first thing I had to face was a decreased budget and budgeting control, and somewhat of could not hire new faculty, could not even replace faculty that were missing. So we had some great financial stresses in those early years. We struggled with the budgets, and we had decreased income, of course, from the endowments because of the Great Recession. And we had, in order to try and recoup some of that, we actually increased the number of students that we took every year. Nevertheless, I think during those years, Ingalls Hall saw some great changes and great experiments. One of them has already been described to you earlier, and that is the Pharmaceutical Science Research Institute, which really was a dream of, at that time, faculty member Teresa Wilburn. And we were able, through good luck and the Lord, to actually secure Dr. Greg Gorman from Southern Research Institute here in Birmingham, and he came in and really made that thing run. We were able to use some funds to set him up with all the equipment he needed, and this produced a great change in the interior, some of Ingalls Hall, in terms of the research laboratories. This has been a huge success. And we've had one of the great things that have come out of it that I think is really, we should mention, is the number of students now that we have interested in doing research. I think this summer we have some 16 students who are actually involved all summer long in full-time research projects in the School of Pharmacy. And they're working with Greg Gorman and also the other faculty members in the science department. So we're very, very excited about that. I think during those years also, we had a great increase in our international involvement, which began, as already has been explained and suggested. Roger Lander and Michael Hogue began a summer program in which we actually bring in pharmacists from around the world for an international clinical pharmacy training program. And this has been overwhelmingly successful. And we have so many inquiries, really, we can't fill them all. We can't fill them all. And I think that has been a great thing that we have been able to do. Another thing we did during those years was, for the first time actually on paper, create a strategic plan. And former faculty member Joel Dobbs came in and helped us set up that how to do and how to create the strategic plan. This was a great time of planning, and you'll see that strategic plan on the walls over there in Ingalls Hall today. Of course, this is the end of that training or that strategic plan program, where we are now working on the new strategic plan. One of the other things that we worked hard on from the very beginning was, in order to increase the better working relationship in terms of assessment inside Ingalls Hall, was to create the position of full-time position of Associate Dean for Assessment. And we were able to recruit Katrina Mintz to come in and help us. And she did a fabulous job, has been doing a fabulous job with assessment, which is so important in today's educational world. In fact, she was so good that the university administration stole her away from us, and we have now had to go out and hire a new assessment person. But we have a great one in Elizabeth, so we're glad to have her with us. One of the great things I think also we were able to do during this time that will greatly affect and has affected Ingalls Hall is that we agreed to join the new College of Health Sciences. And this meant, as has earlier been explained, we will join with the School of Nursing, the School of Public Health, and School of Allied Health Administration, what is it? Something like that, in the new adventure. And I think my great passion for this was that I could see the need for increased interdisciplinary education. And here was an opportunity to have increased interdisciplinary education, which I think is so important for the future. And let me say this, perhaps the most important thing that we did in terms of changes in Ingalls Hall during the time I was the dean was that, and I say this, perhaps this was the most important thing, was that we brought Monty Hogwood from Samford Hall over to Ingalls Hall, where he could have an office right across from our student commons and integrate daily with our students and our faculty. Monty has been a great addition to the work of our school, and I'm just excited that he's well, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that yet, am I? He's been a wonderful worker for us, and we've enjoyed working with him tremendously. I want to say a few words about our international work in terms of international involvement. Again, we have increased the number of students who every year go overseas for study, and this has been a very exciting thing. We have, I think, is it about 30 students next year going on, 100 going overseas, but how many going on clinical rotations? An APPE, huh? 25 students going on what we call APPEs, that is in their senior year, their 5-week clinical rotation, about 25 students going overseas, and that has been increasing every year, and we're very excited about that. We send students all over the world. We send them to China, to Korea, to Malaysia, Indonesia, England, and other places. And so we're very, very excited about the fact that so many of our students are getting the opportunity to have these experiences overseas. In addition, we have a program in which we have been able to bring international scholars here to Ingalls Hall for training. For example, the Peking Union Medical College Hospital in Beijing, China, among their clinical pharmacists, 10 of them have been since 1990 here to Samford University, McWhorter School of Pharmacy for training. And we're very, very proud of that. And of course, that Beijing is one of the areas that we send our students back to also for clinical training. Let me say it's been a great, great experience for me to be the dean during those years. I am very grateful to God to have allowed me that privilege and honor to know those students and work with our faculty, which again I say too, we have as great a faculty, if not a better faculty, than any school of pharmacy that I know of. I say that in all sincerity, and I've been around to quite a few schools. I want to say that I think it's a great thing, though, for the school to join the College of Health Sciences and move to the, quote, East Campus and be part of that. And again, I say the great thing there from my standpoint is the opportunity for interprofessional education. And I think that's a great thing. Let me leave you with a quote from John Piper, who I think, and this statement kind of, for me, illustrates the educational philosophy of the faculty of the McWhorter School of Pharmacy. This is what John Piper says. All thinking, all education, all learning, all research is for the purpose of knowing God, loving God, and revealing God. And I end with that quote from John Piper, and I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you again to Tim, Joe, and Charlie for sharing the history and the background of why this School of Pharmacy is where it is. Our hope was to perhaps have an opportunity for tours of the new facilities. At this point in time, it's still a hard hat area, but for just a moment, I wanted to give you a quick glimpse of the next chapter. As you can see, this is the updated campus map. We will be on the east side of campus. The new facilities will be opening in the fall of 2016. This is where the College of Health Sciences will be located. All 4 schools learning with, from, and about each other, which I think is remarkable. So if we look at these facilities from just a satellite view here, you can see we'll be moving into buildings 1 and 2. There's a connector between those, and this will be the parking area here off Lakeshore Drive. You can imagine how these facilities will revolutionize the opportunities for us to think about how we teach students in a different way. So I wanted to walk you through the facilities and give you some pictures of where we currently are. If you were to stand near the lake and look at Building 2, this is what it looks like. So obviously these are modern facilities. These were built by Southern Progress Corporation, and they have a lot of renovation that's ongoing right now to make them academic centers. The top floor of this building, the second floor, will be where the Department of Pharmaceutical, Social, and Administrative Sciences will be located. So this is what the schematic looks like. So I just wanted to give you a sense, by utilizing this color floor map, what you can do is see how all the pieces come together. There's certainly offices located on this here. You see this large class, or medium-sized classroom here that has 77 seats. But notice the yellow areas. We were so intentional with common spaces where students can come together, where students will be there, where the pharmacy faculty or the PSAS faculty will be located so they'll know how they can interact or interrelate with their faculty members. And then shown here in green with, this is a storage area and an equipment zone that connects the PSRI lab as well as the Pharmaceutical Sciences lab. What you can see is we have a doubling of our research space. Now that certainly increases our research and scholarly output, but as was mentioned earlier by Dr. Sands, it increases our opportunity to teach students, those who are interested in research that may go on to combine with dual degrees and other opportunities. So a phenomenal space, and I think a great place. One thing I would also highlight is we've built in a nice history area so that room 119, the history area, will still have its place as a welcoming place when you come onto the second floor in this space. Just to give you an example of what the research lab looks like, it's a modern lab space. And this is going to be an opportunity to take our research footprint to a higher level and teach our students who are interested in research unique things. If you were to walk over from Building 2, this is the connector building, and you'll notice that the atrium area, which is shown in yellow, is a common space. This is where students will bump into each other, learn about other professions, learn about what other people are learning in the classroom. And there is a spiral staircase that goes from the second floor down to the atrium. So if you were to stand at the top of that staircase and look down, you would see there's the food services area. There'll be a full service, Freshens, full menu. There'll be coffee services, a Starbucks, etc. But this is what that space will look like. It will be a great space for students to relax, recharge, interrelate, interact. And as you can see here, that there's water. There's actually a stream that runs through the building here with a bridge over it. These windows will collapse. So on spring days or fall, those windows will collapse and it will be a nice open area where students will congregate. If you were to park here in the parking garage and come in the main entrance into the building, so Building 1 will be the main entrance. This is what it looks like to welcome you into the space. And then as you come in, you would come to the main lobby area, which will obviously have a College of Health Sciences interprofessional flavor. And then you would walk up the steps to the second floor, and you can see this is where many of the classrooms will be located. One of the two large classrooms will be located here, as well as some smaller classrooms and smaller spaces where more interactive classes can be held. But again, if you look for yellow, you can see that there's lots of spaces where students can congregate and learn, sometimes individually, sometimes in groups behind closed doors. And this is what the classroom looks like. It's a modern classroom. It's going to have high technology in it. But I've challenged the faculty that as we move to these new facilities, it's time for an educational renaissance. That doesn't mean large classroom teaching shouldn't occur. But the opportunities for us to teach differently and the opportunities for students to learn differently is phenomenal. And when we go up to the next floor, you'll see what I mean. The next floor is affectionately referred to as the simulation floor. Green represents clinical teaching labs. And as you look at this floor, you can see these are clinical teaching labs for pharmacy, nursing, public health, and health professions. So we are going to learn with, from, and about each other. So let me just highlight some of the key spaces that will be used. Over here on the right-hand side, these are 4 high-fidelity simulation rooms. These are $250,000 simulation units. These are robots that can breathe, that can talk, that you can take blood pressure on, that you can give drugs to and watch the EKG change. So you can imagine how interprofessional training can occur. Over here on the right-hand side is a mock operating room. It'll be used predominantly by the CRNAs, but you can imagine the opportunity for pharmacists to be involved and learn. On the left-hand side, we have the home health lab. This is basically a mock apartment. The walls are only halfway up, so you can see throughout, because there's audio and video recording opportunities to archive good learning sessions. But it's a home health environment, which obviously is a predominant part of our growth of our health system, to actually go to where the patients are and where the patients need health care. In the back right here, if you're familiar with our health assessment lab in Ingalls Hall, there are 3 health assessment labs here that have 10 beds in each room. There's some tables and chairs in the middle of the room, so it can be impromptu. Let's sit down and talk about this for 5 minutes. Okay, let's go back to physical assessment. These rooms can be electronically connected so that everybody's seeing the same thing at one time, or they can be disconnected so that you can have specific learning for just a certain number of students. One other space that I think is extremely novel and will ensure that our students are practice ready when they graduate would be the provider-like offices or physician-like offices, which are shown here in the middle. There is a standardized patient lounge. This will be where paid actors will come in that feign disease, feign issues. And so they have a lounge where they come in here. Students will have a pre-brief and debrief room here. They'll come in another way. And these actors will come into the spaces, and students will learn how to deal with a difficult patient, how to break bad news, how to do medication therapy management, how to counsel patients. And these rooms have audio and video recording, so it can be archived and put into a student's portfolio, so a student can see where they're doing well and how they can improve. It really does provide neat opportunities. In the back of the area would be what's called the pharmacy suite. This is predominantly used by pharmacy, but the philosophy is that no one owns any part of this building. Everyone has access to use any part of this building. Again, the interprofessional flavor. On the left-hand side would be a 797-like room or area where students would come through a quick pick area, drop it off here, wash up, gown up, and then go back to the sterile compounding area where there are 10 hoods, 2 of which are vertical hoods for chemo-like things, and then 8 horizontal hoods. Students also have a compounding lab. It's going to look very similar to the compounding lab that we have at Ingalls Hall because we're utilizing the same furniture, but this lab is larger. The manufacturer, we're going to expand the space. So great compounding space, but to add to that, we have counseling spaces back here. These will be rooms that have drapes, and this will be a place where students can practice their craft of counseling patients, doing medication therapy management, and those can be archived, again, in the student's portfolio. On the right-hand side, we have the Active Learning Lab, and this is really going to be an innovative, tech-savvy space that can change depending on what the teaching needs are. And so students can use the monitors working groups, but if the faculty member who's working up here says, hold on a minute, it looks like we're missing something very important. Let me take over the monitors. Let me show you something important. Let me draw on my iPad. Let me show you something graphically. It allows for impromptu discussion, and the room changes and morph based on the teaching and learning needs. The last space would be the 4th floor of Building 1, so right above the simulation lab. This is where the Department of Pharmacy Practice will be located. You can see another large classroom intentionally interwoven with where the faculty space would be, as well as some smaller classrooms here. So faculty will be located and staff around here. You've got lots of common space built in. But I want to take a moment to show you CHIPPR, the Center for Healthcare Innovation and Patient Outcomes Research, which is for lack of better words, the Drug Information Center on steroids. It's taken it to another level. And so if you look at this space, this is a 3D rendering. And so there is going to be innovation that occurs here where there will be monitors and computers where students can work with faculty and faculty can work with each other. There's a drug information space here, and in the back behind this column is a space where innovation and outcomes research can be discussed. Again, a very involving, encompassing area. You can see windowed walls around the space. If you want to get a preview of what this looks like, go to the portfolio room in the new business building, because it's a space that brings you in and just begs for you to start asking questions and collaborating. So I think it's really well designed. Before we close our program this afternoon, I did want to take a moment to do two recognitions. Could Bruce Foster and Monty Hogwood please come up to the stage? These two gentlemen will be retiring this year, and I cannot think of a better forum than in front of you to celebrate all that they have done for the School of Pharmacy. After 35 years, Bruce Foster will retire. Yes, it does look like this picture was taken just yesterday. Bruce has certainly touched many, many people in this room, and for you, some of you, he's the reason that you chose pharmacy, Samford, or both. Quite simply, Bruce has been the rock of the school's admissions office for the past 3 decades. There are so many ways to describe Bruce, but certain words really stand out. Faithful, trustworthy, dedicated, humble, servant leader. I have a feeling he's not too happy with all the attention that I am showing him right now. But there's only so many chances that you get to say thank you in front of hundreds of friends. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure Monty's loving this attention. Anyone who wears pants like that likes attention. After almost 25 years at Samford University, including 10 years within the School of Pharmacy, Monty will be retiring in July. I think this picture is certainly symbolic of Monty. He's just one of those people who jumps in and helps out whenever he has the opportunity. I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to know Monty during our various alumni visits and trips over the past 2 years. And there are so many Monty-isms that I could share with you this afternoon. For instance, has anyone ever heard Monty end a thought with, "to chase that rabbit home"? But I suppose my favorite Monty comment would be, "I never let facts get in the way of a good story." So today, we want to take a moment and honor these two individuals. And what I'd like to present to them, we have a schematic, a picture, a nice drawing of Ingalls Hall. And around it, I'll let you guys see, would be notes and comments from your friends and colleagues that you have served and worked with for so many years. So on behalf of the school, I just want to say thank you. This place is a much better place because of you, and please keep in touch. I just want to say thank you for being here. 2 things before we head out. The first one would be that in room 119, there is the T. Sam Rowe silent auction. Dr. Hogue has been working on this with others for quite some time. I would encourage you to go by there, see what goodies there are up for the silent auction. Also, I would just say, I certainly know that you want to reminisce and chat with the previous deans and yourselves, but if you could please make your way to the front of Ingalls Hall. I have a vision of I would like to get a picture of all attendees in front of Ingalls Hall before we leave here today. And I'm going to get that blown up, and it's going to be a picture that is carried over with us to our new facilities to remember this day and to remember the 59 years that we've had. So if you could please meet in front of the building, in front of Sherman Circle here within the next 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you very much.